kind of things that we're up against. Funding of teacher increases and pay increases is very important. And Humble ISD has some deficiencies in that because of the way that our tax base works here right now. The majority of the funding of public education that used to work came from the taxpayers and property taxes associated with that. And it's become unfair. It costs more to live in Humble ISD than it does in Sci-Fair or Katy ISD or some of the other places because of the way that the funding works. We don't have a commercial base of business to pull from. We don't have a manufacturing base of business to pull from. So it's very difficult to be able to do that. Education's important. I know what's wrong with it. I know how to fix it. Property taxes and margins tax, those are two things that are combined. And I know if you read the newspaper, I believe it was this morning's newspaper, the governor was talking about revenue caps and how to control spending and things of that nature. When they fixed property taxes, or they so-called fixed property taxes, in 2 sessions ago, what they tried to do was they tried to give property tax relief, and they passed what they called a margins tax, which is a business tax. Is everybody familiar with that? Do you guys know what I'm talking about in the margins tax? Basically, the margins tax was an increase to businesses. It was in my mind, an unconstitutional business tax. We actually fought against it as a company at the time. I was in the parking business. But basically what they did is 1% of your gross receipts, they tax you, whether you make money or don't make money. So a simple example is that if I had a parking lot in downtown with 20 spaces on it and I paid rent and the Astros weren't performing very well, which they've done over the years, and so people aren't parking with me, no matter if I made money or I didn't make money, I had to pay the state 1% of everything that I made. And when you're operating as a 3 or 4% margin business, you can sell pretty quickly that you start cutting into your profits. And I think that was unfair. And then the property tax relief that we were supposed to get, unfortunately, we didn't get because appraisals continue to grow and your properties continue to grow. And if you own commercial property, and I own some, if you own commercial property, it has grown exponentially. It's explosive growth, and it's very unfair. And so what we're seeing is a combination of those two taxes. So the majority of the people that are paying for the taxes are property owners and business owners and commercial property owners associated with that. I think what you'll see is a push coming forward to change that methodology, and I would be in favor of a consumption tax, whereas we can give property tax relief, marginal tax relief in favor of consumption tax. It's a fair tax. It's an appropriate way for people to be able to pay. It creates a fair share for everybody. So if you're going to go buy an expensive car, or if you're going to be out there, you're going to pay your fair share of that, whereas you're going to get relief on your businesses, you're going to get relief on your property and your real property associated with that. But part of it is you have to control spending, and you have to be able to control what happens. We're projected to have a $12 to $15 billion shortfall in revenues in the next budget cycle. And that is going to be a huge number. When we spend about $92 billion a year. That's what our annual budget is in the state of Texas right now. And they're projecting a $12 to $15 billion shortfall. So what's going to happen is, and we by law have to have a balanced budget, which the federal government had the same laws that we did, but they don't. So we have to have a balanced budget in the state of Texas. And so in order to look at how we're going to do those things, we got to make sure that we go in and find ways to reduce costs. And we're going to have to go and reduce departments. You're going to have to go in and look at ways to reduce spending across the board. It's going to be very important. And so that's going to take somebody that understands, somebody that understands business, and to be able to go in and have a business background, to be able to go in and look at it and say, how do we make decisions and how do we make cuts? One of the biggest things I think you're going to see in this next session, 2 bills. One bill that was introduced, was passed in the Senate, was voter ID. Voter ID is very important in my mind. There are elections that are held across the state that are decided by fewer than 10 votes. School board elections are one of those elections. You don't have to have a valid form of identification in order to vote in the state of Texas right now. You just have to have a voter ID card. There is definitely fraud in that. They passed voter ID in the Senate. They did not pass it in the House in the last session. There's a huge push to be able to get voter ID passed. I think that it's important because it determines who represents you. And I think what you'll see as we continue to move forward, that is definitely going to be a topic that's going to come to fruition. Legislative redistricting, the census is going to come out, and legislative redistricting is going to be one of the most important things that this legislative session is going to handle. And why is that important to us? We're expected to probably pick up four congressional seats in Texas. There's potential that 2 seats could be picked up in our area, one in Dallas and one in either San Antonio and Austin, depending on how the population shifts. And so it's important that we maintain control of the House. Now, this is a Republican seat. This is truly a Republican seat. We do have a Democratic opponent, but this is going to be a Republican seat. But we only control the House by a very slim margin right now, and so there is a big push to make sure that happens, that we maintain, Republicans may control of the House that we have right now. But what you'll see is that making sure that as the lines get redrawn and the redistricting happens, that we make sure that they stay as a solid Republican district, and we stay a solid Republican state. But it's going to be very important. It'll be very interesting to see how that fight goes through. But I think what you'll see from a redistricting perspective is a big push moving forward to make sure that the boundaries are protected and that the Republican districts stay fairly strong in Republican areas. Immigration reform, somebody asked me about immigration reform earlier, and immigration is a tough subject right now. And, I liken it to, if you have a house that has a hole in the top of it and it starts raining and all the rain gets in it, the first thing that you have to do is you have to fix the roof to stop the rain from coming in. And what we have right now, and then you have to worry about how do you get the water out of the house. And so what we have right now is we have a hole in our roof, in our borders right now. We have a huge problem relative to legal immigration. We spend about $4.5 billion in the state of Texas a year on illegal immigration. We collect about $1 billion from an offset on the sales tax. And so what we have is we're spending about $3.5 billion on illegal immigration in the state of Texas right now. There's a few things that we can do from the state of Texas. Number one is that the Department of Public Safety needs additional funding. The governor has asked President Obama for additional funding to help protect our borders. He has not responded. That was asked back in January of last year. They still haven't given us the additional funding, so we're having to do that ourselves and to pay for that ourselves. And that's critical because we have to make sure that we're funding it properly and make sure we can do everything on enforcement. But tying driver's license to green cards, we don't do that right now. Tying your driver's license, the issue of a driver's license or state ID to your green cards. And legislatively, what we can do is what they did in Oklahoma and Arizona, pass laws that if you are a business owner and you hire illegal immigrants, that you can either lose your business license or you can face a criminal penalty associated with that. We have to have enforcement. And what that does is it protects legitimate business owners, people that are doing business and they're conducting themselves appropriately here in the state of Texas. Those are all important things. Last thing I'll say, and I'm happy to take any questions, is that when you look at the candidates and you look at the people that want to represent you, and we've worked hard as a team, my wife and I have worked hard as a team, but more importantly, I understand the issues, I understand what it takes to be a representative. I know that how important it is and how important it is to fight for conservative values and to be conservative. I would ask you to do the research on who I am and what I represent, and hopefully you'll consider supporting us as we move forward. It's very important. It's expensive to run our campaigns. We've raised some money. If you're so inclined to help us with funds, we certainly would appreciate that. Taking a yard sign, telling your friends, taking a brochure, sending an email. We're on Facebook. We do all those things, and that's all important. That's what helps. And the fact that you showed up here today is an honor to us. And I'd just like to thank you for taking the time out of your busy days to come and listen to us today. So thank you very much.